Satis, Queen of Elephantine, known as the Pourer. This is a very important deity in her representation as not only as a goddess, but specifically a goddess associated with water, and in this case, the Nile. Although she is associated with war and hunting, and in some sects fertility, her association with water would be the most important that she would share. This deity comes to us from Kemetic or Egyptian mythology, from the people who established civilizations along the Nile River Valley. Per their mythology, this deity would originate in the Sirius star system. Her sacred color is blue for its association or her association to water. Her sacred animal is the antelope, and verification of this deity is apparent in the pyramid text, specifically from the 6th dynasty. Her major cult center was in the city of Elephantine, and thus her title. And she was symbolized oftentimes by the Hejed crown, the antelope, the ankh, the bow and arrow, which were her weapons, as well as the flowing river. Her consort was Montu, but she was also later associated with Khnum, the moon god, and that would become a very particularly important association for her. She would also be connected to Ra and would take on the guise of the Eye of Ra at times. She has an offspring who is the deity Anuket, and she herself obviously was titled the Queen of Elephantine, and shows how high her veneration went in that area. She was called the donator of the cooling waters of the first cataract, and literally came to personify the annual flooding of the Nile, which gave her her name as the Pourer. And we know how important that annual flooding was and what it brought in terms of fertility to that region, and was really the core for its foundation and its ability to thrive and develop into the civilization that it became. So she holds a very highly regarded place in this pantheon. She was also considered to be the protective deity of Egypt's southern border with Nubia, who had gone through a series of wars over the course of their history together. And not only was she a war goddess or god of war and hunting, but also fertility, and that brings up some striking comparisons to the Greek deity Artemis, who would come many thousands of years later, but yet essentially captured many of the same attributes of this deity here. Like many of the Kemetic deities, she is represented anthropomorphically, with the crown of Upper Egypt on her head, flanked by 2 curved antelope horns, which of course being her symbol. And almost as importantly as her connection to the flood of the Nile was her connection with Khnum and her offspring, which formed the Elephantine triad, which again is a very important concept. We talk about the Memphis triad, we talk about the original triad with Asar, Heru, and Aset, and this was an important representation for the people at that time, and we've seen them consistently portray deities and groupings of that order. What that ultimately means, we'll have to further investigate. But what we can learn from Satis is how they revered and respected the cycle of flood that brought them nutrition by fertilizing their fields and allowing them to establish this great kingdom. And she was never forgotten, heavily venerated throughout the 6th dynasty, and still continues into legend now. Thank you again for joining us here at Nile Chronicles as we continue to explore the connections between these deities and their beliefs and their people, and our connections to us, and how that brings us together, looking at the various connections of our worship, our belief systems, and our fears. As always, we ask that you like and subscribe, and please be sure to check out some of our other videos.